What's up, nerds? Today I thought we would take a look at what the top 5 best characters in Honkai Star are looking like right now. The game is now in its 2.0 patch, and I think there's been enough character development where a list like this has some value and makes a little bit of sense. Alright, so this is how it's gonna work. We have 3 main categories for characters in this game: the DPS slot, the support slot, and the sustainability slot. I want at least 1 character mentioned for every single category, and I want to keep the number down to 5 for this particular video. We might change up that number in the future when this video gets potentially updated as the meta changes and shifts. I will have some honorable mentions for the end of the video, so don't worry, your favorite character may have not made it in the top 5, but they might be in the honorable mentions. And if your favorite character didn't make it in the video at all, don't worry, they'll probably make it as an honorable mention in the future, as long as they're good enough. Besides, more specific criteria might be used for videos in the future, and that's when some of those other characters might get mentioned then. And if a character didn't make it into this video, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad, it just means they didn't make it into the top 5. And the top 5, it's constantly changing as the meta shifts. We'll probably do an update. Let's move on. It should have been obvious that this first character makes the list because this Master Diviner is second to none. Miss Lady Fu Xuan. While some players don't even run a sustainability character under certain conditions, Fu Xuan is known as the #1 best sustainability character in the entire game, at least right now. 2 noteworthy situations you wouldn't necessarily want to use her are with a Yang Xing team because he wants a shielder like Gepard, or potentially a DOT team where Huohuo is known as the best sustain for that team because of the energy that she provides, as well as the attack buff she provides, which helps the scaling of DOTs. But Fu Xuan is typically the best sustainability character you could be choosing in basically any other scenario besides that. Now, going in no particular order here, the next character on the list is the former sword champion of the Lo Fu, the lady in white and blue that went sicko mode, and you wish that she went sicko mode on you. Of course, I'm talking about Jingliu. Like Fu Xuan, Jingliu has been sitting at the top of tier lists ever since her release. Part of the reason why is because she is so easy to build, so easy to use, and she deals a ton of damage without even having to think about it. And if you've ever seen what she could do on Rule 34 video, you might understand another reason why so many players like her. This DPS character gives herself 50% crit rate when she needs it the most, allowing players to hyper-focus on crit damage and not necessarily have to focus in on crit rate all that much, making it much easier to build the character. The key to Jingliu is through her enhanced damage state, where you want to basically keep her in that enhanced damage state as much as possible, giving her more energy through team pairings of other characters, and also hyper-focusing in on buffs to give her during this enhanced damage state. You pretty much want to out-DPS the enemy before she falls out of this state and get her back into this high damage state as much as possible if she does fall out. Not much needs to be said about Jingliu. Her reputation truly precedes her, even in the in-game lore. However, there is one thing that I do see holding Jingliu back and might potentially allow her to get power crept someday in the future, and that, ironically, is her high damage state. If you've ever played Jingliu, you might have noticed that if you are on the last stack of her high damage state and you just so happen to defeat some enemies using that last stack, she usually can activate her ultimate and then maintain her high damage state. It's a little bit of a trick of combat. However, if you're in between waves and the wave changes after you defeat those enemies, even if you activated the ult, it falls off and you fall out of the high damage state. It's because of the way the game is programmed. At least that's how a lot of us see this. And unfortunately, this means you'd have to restart everything all over again and try to get her back into that damage state. Now, I don't know if they will ever change this, but if they don't, this is some slight thing that can potentially hold her back. It doesn't happen all of the time, and if you speed tune the character properly and then maybe adjust the speed of the character, you might be able to potentially get out of this problem during certain Memory of Chaos runs. But this is something that is a factor that holds her back occasionally, but only in certain conditions. It's not usually a problem, like I said. I'm yapping, but it is something that I think is worth note. The next character on the list, again in no particular order, is the illustrious number 81 of the Genius Society, Ruan Mei, who just so happens to be very interested in exquisite desserts such as cake. and I wouldn't mind getting a mouthful of that cake, if you know what I mean. In a similar fashion to Jingliu, Ruan Mei is a very, very easy character to build. You basically hyper-focus in on break effect, getting at least 180% break effect, then you slap some energy regeneration rate on her, decide if you want her to be built fast or slow, you might as well get relics for both because both are good in different circumstances, and then you just let her buff the ever-loving crap out of your entire team without even having to lift one of her dainty little fingers. Ruan Mei is incredibly easy to use, and her buffs are team-wide, so she quite literally unlocks the dual DPS meta in a way that no character before her has ever done. She's not just the best support character for dual DPS, by the way, she's also the best support character for DOT teams, but she's not necessarily a specific support character like that. I can't struggle to actually think of a single team she isn't incredibly good on. And one of the best parts about her, she's incredibly skill point efficient. I heard somebody once say that Ruan Mei gives them granny vibes, that she's wearing a granny sweater, and all I have to say to them is, I'd tap that granny right here, right now, in the streets for the entire world to see. This next character, again in no particular order, is the powerful, the majestic, the guy who does not even remember who he is, the guy with amnesia, Dan Heng Inhibitor Lune. That's right, the king is back. Dan Heng Inhibitor Lune fell behind in the DPS charts just a little bit behind Jingliu at E0, because he's a little bit more difficult to build a team around. He wants specific characters, he's very skill point hungry, but with the introduction to Sparkle into this game, it is a lot more comfortable to play a Dan Heng Inhibitor Lune now. He's always been a top dog, but now his presence is even more prevalent than it's probably ever been. Dan Heng Inhibitor Lune is one of those type of characters that requires just a little bit of extra effort in order to truly make them optimal, in order to truly hit those upper echelons that they want to reach. A character like Sparkle being introduced into the game, however, makes it much more easy to play Dan Heng Inhibitor Lune. Sure, he does require an entire team to be built around him, which is what you would have to do with any other DPS anyway, but it is much more important to plan around him because of his skill point efficiency problems. Again, a character like Sparkle and other characters like Ting Yun, maybe Ruan Mei, can help you deal with that issue, but it is something that you have to worry about when building him. But he is one of those characters that if you put in the effort to make him really good, you get a lot back. And I think that's the way a top-level DPS should be. Jingliu is so powerful because she basically gets to cheat. You don't have to put a ton of effort into making her super strong. That's why I do like the way Dan Heng's kit was made. However, I do need to point this out. No other character on this top 5 list besides him has this particular issue, where to reach the best possibilities he could have, you have to pair him with another character. Yes, I'm aware that he's incredibly powerful even without Sparkle, but to reach his most optimal power levels, you need to have Sparkle. And I know I sound like I'm nitpicking, but don't take it the wrong way. This is a top 5 best characters in the game list. That's part of the thing we do here. We nitpick the characters' flaws, the only flaws they'd have, then stack them up with the other characters on the list. Again, don't get it twisted. He's on the top 5, and he deserves to be. Dan Heng Inhibitor Lune can give himself damage buffs in the middle of battle. He gives himself crit damage buffs in the middle of battle. And he doesn't have a special kind of damage state like Jingliu has holding him back. What's holding him back is the skill points. So as long as you have skill point efficient team members such as Ting Yun, Ruan Mei, or Sparkle, you can get him to the power level that he really wants to be. The next character on this list, again in no particular order, is the inscrutable, the unscrupulous, the dangerous maestro of theatrics, the member of the Masked Fools, Sparkle. Which hurts me to say because I wanted it to be Ting Yun, but that's just, bias on my part. Sparkle is a support character that truly changes the game. She has a multitude of different buffs that she can provide your team, but she also kinda gets to cheat. She has action advance forward, which is basically cheating in itself, but she can raise the skill point cap of your entire team. She can also give you a stack of skill points. She does something that we've never seen in the game before. You might notice a little bit of a trend with some of the characters on this list. Sparkle is yet another really high-level character that is very easy to build. I've always felt like if a character is going to be this good, they should require a little bit of extra effort, like Dan Heng and Lune. Some of these characters are sort of cheating by being so easy to build and yet being so good despite that. You basically stack a bunch of speed and a bunch of crit damage on your Sparkle, and you're pretty much good to go. And all of those random HP and defense pieces that kept rolling into crit damage, well, guess what? Now they have value because you just slap them on Sparkle, and there you go. Just stack up those two stats, and you're pretty much set. Now let's point out some honorable mentions for the three main categories that I pointed out earlier. Let's go ahead and take care of the sustainability slot first, because I think this one's pretty easy. Now, Huo and Luocha. These two are the most powerful healers in the entire game. I do value Huo more than I value Luocha because although Luocha is the most powerful healer in the entire game, he doesn't actually give you any extra combat prowess. He's just more safe. Huo gives you energy and attack power, and that's really damn good. She's, in my opinion, the best healer in the game and the second best sustain character in the entire game. And she just so happens to be the best healer, the best sustain for a DOT team. Now let's take a look at the support slot. Here we have two of the best characters from patch 1.0, in my opinion, in Bronya, who is the best 5-star character from the standard banner, and we also have here Ting Yun, who in my opinion is the best 4-star character from the standard banner. And some slight honorable mentioning below those two is Silverwolf and Pela, who are two incredibly powerful supports as well, and the combo of having them both on the same team can potentially give you true damage on your team. Now let's run through the DPS slot really quickly because there's a lot of DPS characters in this game. There's more DPS characters than literally any other type in the entire game, so let's try to get through this quickly. We have the free Dr. Ratio, incredibly powerful, and he's your imaginary unit if you don't have Dan, and he was given to us for free from Hoyo. Thank you, Hoyo. Another character that was given to us for free, only one copy. If you remember early on in the game, QQ was given to us for free if you beat a certain condition in the game in Memory of Chaos. Can't remember what, but she's incredibly strong if you don't have Sela, who's the other honorable mention that goes right next to her because they're both arguably about as good as each other depending on how you have them built, and they're both quantum units. Now, I really need to mention the DOT characters here, Kafka, Jesus Christ. Kafka and Black Swan. The combination of these two is incredibly strong. Can't stress enough how good these two are together. They're powerhouses, and they really do want each other, though, to be as good as they could be, almost like Dan really wanting Sparkle, etc., etc. Topaz. Oh my god, this character is so good, and not enough people talk about her. She doesn't need to be paired with follow-up characters to be as strong as she is, but if you do, man, does it pay off. Holy shit, and not gonna lie, she do got a good booty. I'm a little bit sad that her pose was nerfed, that they literally just didn't give us her super hot pose, but it is what it is. And lastly, but not leastly, maybe kind of leastly, Jingliu. He wants a specific relic set, he wants specific teammates, but he is really strong, and now that Sparkle's in the game, he got a big power boost. But he is the last mentioned character on the list, and he's not on the list, he's just an honorable mention. It should be noted that all characters were valued at E0, however, if we were valuing them at E6, this list probably wouldn't have changed. Obviously, there's a lot of other great characters I could have given honorable mentions to, but this wasn't supposed to be a tier list. This is just supposed to be a top 5 list with some honorable mentions slapped on the back. If your character didn't make it onto the list, let me know about it. I'll try to include them in a future video and talk about how good they are and what capabilities they have. Anyways, if you found any of this helpful or informative in any way, shape, or form, consider leaving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.